Hey guys, Ben Paint here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are back at Formula Fast, a track that we really do enjoy for rounds 3 and 4 of the SRK Championship. Now, it's going to be a double round today. In this video, I'm going to show you the footage from round 3, and in about a week, whilst I'm on holiday, I'm going to release the footage from round 4. So stay tuned to that for that very soon. But obviously today we have a bit of a mixed format, not our typical 3 heats in this one. We do in fact have only 2 heats. I'm not entirely sure on the length, but this is then sort of separated into our consequencing finals, much like every other round. There's also a pit stop included in each of these heats, so honestly we have that little bit of BRKC element involved in there, but this time just going to hope that we have a little bit more success on the alternate layout, which is coming up first in this video. Now obviously we do have 2 rounds of the alternate layout followed by a final, and then 2 rounds of the normal layout followed by a final as well, and then the top 10 drivers overall go into sort of a super final, which we'll see if we can make it. I don't think we will, as there is a lot of talented drivers here today, but in the meantime we're going to jump into the rest of the footage. So before we do that, if you do enjoy this video, can you please leave a like on the video down below, as I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really helps me out. But without further ado, we're going to jump straight into the footage from heat 1, and we're going to see how we get on today. Before we jump into our first heat then, guys, just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a rundown of the alternate layout that we were running whilst I miss every single apex on the planet. Obviously I just wanted to go around quite slowly to begin with, didn't want to go around at full speed, just to sort of understand the layout of the track that we're going to be racing on. And as you can see, there were a number of sharp hairpins to replace the snail section at the beginning of the track. Coming back down into the second half of the track is obviously the normal layout. Now before the run down to the final big hairpin at the end of the track, I realised that it was quite slippy in these conditions at the beginning of the day. Obviously wasn't quite used to this. We were expecting there to be a little bit more grip, and we're just going to jump into the racing now and see how we're able to get on. Now we are lining up in 10th position, as I mentioned here, at the back of the pack in a tough group of drivers. We've got Matt Baker up ahead of us, and obviously a sea of BSR members in front of us as well. So we're going to see how far we can sort of press through here as the lights go green. We are at the back of the pack, so we just got to wait to get round the last corner. So coming across the line then, 10th position, and all manner of chaos unfolds. We do gain a few positions there up into 8th, and there is now a yellow flag. The carts were restricted, so me and Jed are sort of crawling along. I had my foot pinned to the floor, and it still just felt restricted when the lights went green. But as we had the inside line, we were able to take a free position on Jen there. Felt a bit rude as I was sort of waiting almost to allow her to go back through, but as she had the outside line, didn't want to lose any more time. You can already see Sam Slater on the left hand side of the screen. He's in second place, and he's essentially half the lap ahead of us. So we've been compromised quite a lot from the start. Obviously from that big incident, we just sort of dropped back out of the pack. So we come across the line on our first lap of 41.620, which is very slow, about 11 seconds or 10 seconds off the pace. So quite disappointed with that. So I just wanted to try and get in here and just salvage this heat as much as we possibly could. Obviously coming from last place anyway, any positions that were going to be gained were going to be a bonus from our starting position. So we can see up ahead we've got Jeff Fricker and Matt Baker having a little bit of a battle with one another, and I knew that if they were going to do this, then this was only going to give us an opportunity to catch up. But we did not have a chance to get involved in that, as Matt Baker dives into the pit lane. We come across the line with a 33.181 second lap time, and now we are raining down with some pretty decent pace on the back of Jeff Fricker here, who I think was still getting used to the track. Obviously, unfortunately for us, the sort of lap you saw was the only real bit of practice we got on the day. So it was really difficult to try and get to grips with this alternate layout immediately, be right on the pace, and it was even made even more difficult that I had to start from the very back of the pack and had that incident to try and get through. So instead of racing with Jeff, I decided to pit quite early here and try and get the jump on some of the other guys that were up ahead of us. Obviously, when you're at the back of the pack, it's usually a better incentive to pit early to try and give yourself a bit more space to then go and hot lap. Unfortunately for me, you can see that we have come out right behind Matt Baker. We have gained time on him, but we are going to get compromised. So in light of not allowing myself to get compromised, I decided to throw myself down the inside going into this hairpin as quickly as possible, just to try and give myself as much breathing room up ahead as you can see. So Now we had a lot of open air just to really get some laps in, go for some good pace, and hopefully get the jump on some of the other guys if they are battling with one another. But obviously, as I mentioned, there were about 4 members in this race that were all racing for the same team, so I knew that they weren't going to battle with one another, and it would be quite difficult to try and catch back up. You can see they're all there on the left hand side of the screen already, so that's sort of the gap that we've got to try and make up. Coming across the line, we're 33.223, which is still a tenth or half a tenth off our fastest lap so far, and I just found that I was getting a bit more comfortable the more and more I went through this heat, and we were then able to go quicker and quicker. So coming back down the back half of the track now, you can see on the board above our head 2 minutes 50 left, so not a lot of time left in this one to really try and make any inroads. So we just got to hope that we can jump some people through their pit stops or some errors. You can see we're getting quicker each lap as well, a 32.888, and we were able to take some better lines here, getting closer to the apexes. I think I was figuring out the braking points that I was required to use. I was trying to carry the momentum through each of the corners a little bit better too. Using the steering wheel a bit too much through some of the sections, you can see that I am having to correct, which is obviously scrubbing the tyres, slowing our momentum down, but we are just aiming to use the steering wheel in one smooth movement. We can see that Jeff there is in the pit lane. Obviously he was up ahead of us before we went into the pits. We've managed to jump that amount of time on him, so now we're up into 5th place, which I was really happy with. I believe that Charlotte was up ahead in 4th place as well, so if we were able to keep our pace up, then we'd be able to salvage a result of 4th place on or against her as well. So obviously, as we're coming around here, still trying to keep as fast as possible coming around these latter stages of the race here. We've got a minute and a half left, so really getting the pace down as much as we can. You can see Charlotte in the corner of the screen has dipped into the pits, so we're going to see if we can jump her now as she's going through, and we are able to get that done, and she does actually receive a yellow light as well, unfortunately for her, so that means that she will have to repit and do that again. Now we do jump ahead in this one, as we were just hot lapping once again, and to my surprise, Sam Slater up ahead of us did in fact have a yellow light with his pit stop, so we're about to have a nice little battle with him. He is in kart number 19, which on the day wasn't one of the best karts, and I was in kart number 13, which was actually one of the best karts. I didn't realise this at the time, obviously, as it was the first race we'd been in, but it was a very good kart to be using. It was very solid, had very solid pace, and you can see that our fastest lap so far is a 32.694. We looked for a move down the inside there, but I think Sam Slater had flashbacks from last year where we sent it down the inside, so he was able to cover it off quite well. Decided to back out as I didn't want to cause a huge incident of loading going into the back hairpin there, and we're coming into the last couple of laps now, so I was hoping that we were going to be able to stay on the back of him. Unfortunately, make a little bit of a mistake there by clipping the barrier. That loses us a little bit of momentum, and we're just not able to get the kart rotated as well as he is, and you can just see through the corners he is gaining that extra little bit of time, so a little bit of like half a tenth here and there. You can see the time has now ticked to 0, so the next lap is going to in fact be the final lap, and you can see here we are within touching distance of making an overtake, but we're just not quite close enough. So unfortunately we're having to sit in behind him, tantalisingly close, and once again, as I mentioned, we're just not getting the kart rotated as quickly as he is, and you can see we're just losing time through the corners. We're able to gain it back through some of them, but not all of them, and just over the course of a lap we are just losing time to him, or averaging out and equaling his times. So we're coming back down the back straight here, going into the big hairpin at the end of the track here, trying to preserve as much momentum as we can, coming around the last couple of corners here, unfortunately clipping the barrier once again, making a few mistakes, and this leads us to come across the line in 4th position. However, the last lap of the race there in the first heat was in fact our fastest lap, a 32.604, which to my surprise was about 3 or 4 tenths off the fastest guys in this one, so a bit disappointed with that. But let's jump into a recap from the first heat. Okay then guys, so after our first heat, pretty action packed pretty early on, very short heats today, so we had to make the moves stick when we could, just try and make up as many positions as we can, and we managed to go from 10th to 4th, only just missing out on 3rd place due to the first lap sort of carnage that was going on. We did get held up quite a bit and lost quite a lot of time, which is quite unfortunate, as Sam Slater up ahead of us had to sort of do another stop, so he did come out just ahead of us, and unfortunately we just didn't quite have the overspeed to really go for a move without trying to get a penalty or anything. So 4th place in our first heat, really happy with that. We're going to jump into the second one where we're starting in 1st position. We have teammate Harley Smith behind us in 2nd, and I believe that we also have teammate Aaron Mitchell-Begley in 6th in that heat as well. So we're going to jump into that one now and see how we get on in the second heat of the day. Hopping into our second heat then, we are starting on pole, and I knew that in my head if I was able to preserve this position, run away, then we'd be a shoo-in for one of the positions in the illustrious A final, which would have been an amazing result for us. So let's see if we're able to do it. Now we get underway. I did give a little signal to Harley behind just to let him know when I was going to run away, just so we could try and get a jump on some of the other guys up behind. Now Harley had also not actually raced yet, so this was the first time he was out on track, so I was hoping to try and use him almost as a little bit of a buffer to try and escape into the distance. Now unfortunately, what I didn't realise is the car I was using wasn't really going to cooperate. Now this car was an absolute plague for everyone throughout the day, and it just didn't have much pace in the low end speed, or it didn't have much low end speed, I meant. So this was obviously a big issue going into the first half of the lap, just due to the fact that there's a multitude of hairpins. You're at low speed for pretty much this whole section of the track, and I don't know if you could probably hear it in the background, but the car doesn't actually sound like it's revving as much as it probably should do compared to some of the other carts that we used throughout this layout. Now we do jump forward in this one. You can see him having to defend a little bit to Theo Rafter, who's behind, giving us a nice bit of loading as we're coming into the last couple of corners here on the lap. So in order to mitigate any time loss just due to this, I decided to dip into the pits, try and get my pit stop done early, just to ensure that I could get away. We do have Max Thorne throwing up some lovely distracting signals up ahead of us, and as we come out the pits here, we do come side by side with Harley, who has actually already pitted, so we were now in behind him in 4th position, so a net P2. However, Aaron decides to send a big move up our inside, which I definitely wasn't too happy about at the time. You can probably hear me saying some choice words, especially as we're coming down the back straight as well. And you can just see how much time we've lost just from that little bit of an overtake and a little bit of contact. Obviously at the time I was quite angry, but honestly, the car I was in is absolutely fair game at that point. Unfortunately though, we did get jumped by Tom Wiltshire, who comes out ahead of us as well, so we've now lost 3 positions to the guys up ahead of us. All these guys have already pitted now alongside myself, so we're now down in 5th, and obviously Theo Rafter is still up in 1st place. He hasn't pit yet, so it just goes to show how much time I was sort of losing in this kart throughout the race. Unfortunately, I was driving perfectly fine. I felt like I was driving better than I was in the first heat, but I was hitting more apexes and stuff, but unfortunately just didn't seem to go our way in this one. Now one thing that did go our way is Tom Wiltshire did in fact get himself a yellow light in the pit stop, so we're able to gain a free position up into 4th place now. And then we have Harley and Aaron, obviously our 2 teammates, making moves on Theo Rafter as he comes out the pits. They're able to get up into 1st and 2nd now, which for me as a team boss at this point, I was really happy to see this. You can now see Harley running off into the distance. I'm down in 4th, but I was hoping that if I was able to get any closer, that I'd be able to make a move. You can see I'm driving way better lines than Theo up ahead of us, but unfortunately the kart just wasn't really cooperating. I say that as I just go barreling into the barrier, and we do come across the line. I didn't realise that was the last lap, if I'm brutally honest, in 4th place. However, Aaron did in fact receive a 2-place grid penalty for an incident on the 1st lap, so this does move us up to 3rd place. So not all was lost here, a 4th place and a 3rd place for our first 2 heats. So let's see which final this puts us in. So to my surprise, with the results that we had, which I thought were pretty decent enough, we found ourselves in the 4th place in the C final. Now this was due to the fact that 8 or 9 drivers, including myself, all had the exact same number of points. However, unfortunately, my lap time just seemed to be lacking due to having that slower car in the 2nd heat, and also our 1st heat, we were still getting to grips with the track. So we find ourselves in 4th here, and we're just going to try and get our head down and get as best a result as we can. Obviously, the driver in 1st place in this one does get promoted up to the B final with a chance to gain a few more points. So we're going to see what we can do in this one. We've got Max Thorne, Aiden Dancer and Zach Swaddle up ahead of us in 1st, 2nd and 3rd. So I was hoping that they were going to have a little bit of a nice battle with one another and give us a little bit of an attempt to try and make our way back into this race. Now we come across the line, our 1st lap, 32.610, and we are all just politely racing in a single file train here. You can see Max looks over his shoulder. It looks to be a little bit defensive. I didn't want to go for any early moves just yet, as I wanted to try and stick with these guys, but unfortunately I just get a really bad exit out of the 2nd hairpin there, and you can just see how much time it's cost us coming down the back straight here into the big hairpin down the back of the track. Now again, we're then able to gain this time back, but we are just out of reach at the moment for any sort of moves going into the beginning of this race. Come across the line once again, being really consistent within a tenth once again, getting that corner a little bit wrong, unfortunately, the first corner, and we just go a little bit wayward, and you can see us cause us to lose a little bit more time. So just having a few mistakes here and there, which has just costed us those crucial tenths, and the gaps growing to the top 3 drivers up ahead of us. So we're coming back down the back straight once again into the big hairpin, and we're coming around the last couple of corners, taking that corner really nicely there, and that has allowed us to gain a little bit closer to the guys up ahead, but still a bit too far away. We come across the line with 31.964, so our quickest lap of the final so far, and we're hoping to try and just keep our head down, keep this momentum going, and see if we can build on this coming into the rest of the race. You can see I'm turning in quite early there. I think that is costing me a little bit of time. Obviously the other guys were turning in a little bit later, and as we look back up ahead of us, you can see Max Thorne goes for a big lunge down the inside of Aiden Dancer there, and now I believe that we are going to try and do the same, but unfortunately Aiden dips off into the pits, giving us 3rd position. So given a free position there pretty much from the battling and Aiden having his pit stop. So now it was just a case of, could I keep up with Zach and Max, who are up ahead of us? Obviously they're looking pretty quick in this one, so if I'm able to get anywhere near them and keep up with them, then we're going to be on for a good result here. But unfortunately I just seem to be falling away bit by bit here, and it's just costing us a lot of time. You see someone there has had an invalid stop as well, so unfortunately for them, they're going to have to come in and do another pit stop. I'm not sure if that's Aiden or not. I don't think it was. I don't think he was in kart 15, but we are once again going to try and go for a nice clean line, but unfortunately we have got Ryan Taylor there, who goes for a huge dive bomb down our inside, a very good move, and this just opens us up to Tyler Mays coming through as well, 1 by 1. So we've leaked 2 positions there, which I was a little bit disappointed about, and I just didn't really think to look behind me after Ryan made the move to think that Tyler was also right up behind him, and it's just cost us 2 positions very easily and very quickly. It didn't even put up much of a fight there to try and defend the position. So annoyingly now we've moved from 4th up to 3rd and then back down to 5th, and this is sort of the way it remained for a majority of the race. You can see our fastest lap so far is our last lap at 31.735, and we are on the back of Tyler, who is still up ahead of us. But unfortunately for us then, once again, just not really looking behind us and checking what's going on, we do have Tom Wiltshire who comes flying down our inside again, and this just leads us to lose another position down to 6th. So leaking a few positions here in this one, just couldn't really get as much out of the kart as I wanted to. I figured out by the end of the race that I was actually one of the slowest people on track. I believe I wasn't slowest, but I was the 2nd slowest person on track, which I was quite surprised about. Obviously I don't think that this is my true pace, but it is what it is, and we have to just work with what we have. Now you can see that we came out of the pits there in 8th position, and whilst most pit stops still haven't been done, you can see Tyler is now pitted as well, and we are right up behind him once again. So another battle is about to take place. Someone was in the pits there on the right hand side, didn't quite catch a glimpse of who that was, but we're now up into 7th once again. This is where everyone is going to start making their pit stops as we come into the latter stages of the race. You can see how sort of defensive Tyler is driving, which was a bit annoying to me, as I wanted to try and work with him to maybe push back up towards the other guys who are further ahead who hadn't pitted yet. But we can just see how defensive Tyler is getting as we are into the last couple of laps of the race. So it's all fair game that he's going this defensive, but I didn't really want to hang around behind him too long, as I wanted to try and gain back any positions that I'd lost earlier in the race. Now coming into the last couple of the first corner, sorry, not the last couple of corners, you can see we just accidentally bumped the back of Tyler there, giving him a little bit of a momentum boost, and again I decided enough's enough, decided to dive down the inside into the 2nd hairpin, try and turn right to not push him into the wall, but as you can see we were sort of had our steering locked to the right, but we still did get our karts tangled there a little bit. Went slightly defensive here, but I don't think he got that good of a drive out of the corner, so we're able to take a more conventional racing line. And now we're coming around the last couple of corners here. We have Aiden in the pit set on the right hand side. I'm unsure if he got a yellow flag as well from his pit stop, so that may have been him who had to redo his pit stop, and that's moved us back up into 5th position with a couple of laps left to go in this one. Didn't really think that we were going to be able to catch up with anyone else. You could see up ahead that the distance to anyone is negligible because they're just so far ahead, it's not even worth speaking about. Did go slightly defensive there against Tyler, but as I looked over my shoulder I realised that he was a few attempts back. He had just dropped off us a little bit here. I don't know if he'd given up or if it was just a bit far behind from the last couple of laps. But again, we come across the line of our fastest lap so far, a 31.604, and you can see that Thomas Wiltshire is out ahead of us in 4th position. But unfortunately, at this point in the race, we weren't really going to catch him unless he just decided to drive straight on at the hairpin here that he's getting to now. And now we're coming down into the last couple of corners here, trying to get as tight to the apex as we can once again, preserving as much momentum as we can. And now coming around the last couple of corners here for the last lap, we do come across the line with a 31.687, so not even matching our fastest lap of the race. Bit disappointed with the result in this one, but I did the best that I could with the car I was given. So in the meantime, we're going to jump into an end of round 3 roundup from this one. Okay then guys, so after our 2 heats, we did in fact end up placing ourselves in 4th position in the C final. Managed to sort of try and hold off as much as we could, or try and just be as consistent in our pace as we could be, but unfortunately we did manage to lose a position, drop down to 5th in the C final, which did end us up placing in 23rd position, I believe, or 24th, I think we finished in the end, which is by no means a bad result for the day, but it's just pretty average considering our other results throughout the rest of the year. Pretty disappointed to have not had a couple more positions in the heats, which would have obviously given us a nice shot at getting into the A final and some really good points for the team, but the team did manage to get some really good points regardless. The rest of the guys did really well, and honestly really proud of them. But that does in fact bring us to the end of the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you have, can you please leave a like on the video down below, as I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, we are going to have the 4th round, or the second part of this day, up in the next couple of days or a week, so I'll try and get that up as soon as I can. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.